Welcome back. Today we're with the 87 R10 and I have been driving this thing, absolutely enjoying it. Drives completely different than the C30 that's over my shoulder, but that could be the difference between big block and small block. Regardless, not having a gas gauge is annoying. It's kind of, I think I have enough gas to get to where I'm going since the last time I filled up. In any case, today we're going to address that, look into it, see if we can figure out why it is. Hopefully we don't have to drop the tank, but who knows. The other tank, on the other hand, is not working. It gives me what the fuel level is, but pump's not firing. So as an added bonus, hopefully we can see that and get both of these tanks working the way they should. To do that, I got myself my meter. This is just a standard 90 ohm, where 0 ohms, essentially a short, is empty, and 90 ohms is completely full. So we'll unplug it, see what it's reading as, and then while it's unplugged, unplugged is more than 90 ohms, so when I unplug it, the gas gauge should go all the way to full. It'll be a good way of telling whether the issue is in the tank or somewhere else in the car. So let's get to that. So this is how this works. The float, when it moves, changes the resistance of a resistor. The higher the resistance, the more full the fuel tank is. So, in a GM system, 0 ohms is empty and 90 ohms is full. So what we're going to do, just to make sure that the vehicle side is correct, I'm going to take this cover off and then disconnect everything. Turn the key on, and the gauge should read full because infinity is higher than 90. So let's get this cover off so we have access to everything, and then we'll disconnect that, check that. If everything that side works good, cool. Now we got to figure out where in the system things are messed up. Plus, for bonus points, if we can get the fuel pump in this tank to start running, or at least figure out why it's not running, that'd be great. I have a feeling that might be because previous owners did custom wiring. I don't know. We'll find out. Let's get this cover off. So to do that, we will be removing, and I don't think this is the right size. No, I do not think this is the right size. I got that bolt. I got one up here. Oh, come on. And we have this one up here, which, if I remember correctly, has a nut on the back of it. And there is our connector. So you're going to have left tank, this wire goes up to the gauge, and right tank. So by disconnecting this connector, now this is set to infinity and the gas gauge should read full. Let me go check that. Okay, so turn the key, gas gauge goes to full. So we know that from here forward is working like it's supposed to. So now let's get our meter here, and we will set this to ohms. All right, I'm gonna take my one lead and use the ground for the passenger tank, and I'm going to check the driver's side tank. This should check for both a good ground and to see if the resistance is working. So put it on this pin, and I have 90 ohms, so that's a full tank. And this one's going straight to ground. Huh. Well, I have some gas in gas cans. Let me put it in the driver tank, find out what's going on. That's interesting. All right. So I have put 5 gallons into the truck. That should be about a quarter tank of gas. So let's see what we're reading now. Oh, got punched in the face with a flashlight. Where's my lead? That should be the pink wire. So well, there is something wrong with that float. I think we're gonna have to drop this tank again. Boy, I really feel like we were just here a moment ago. But let's take these 8 bolts out, lower this tank. We'll roll it from underneath the truck, pull the sending unit out, and see what's wrong with the float. It could be jammed. It could have came undone. Don't know. Let's go find out. So. Oh, what is it poking my finger? Okay, that is the rear undone. Now let's go get these front 4. Hopefully we can get to them with this. Nope. All right. Well, I'll steal the socket and get them out with a ratchet. There it goes. Okay, with that, electrical connection is undone. We have the ground, but the ground should slack. We should be able to push this away from the frame. Filler neck is unattached. We should be ready to lower this down. Well, we're fairly lucky, and you know, as lucky as you can be for having to pull a tank back out of a truck. But the hoses were long enough we were able to get this out of here. So I'm going to disconnect the 3 hoses so that we can pull this out and see, well, just what happened. So let's get to it. Well, I can say the gas gauge is very much wrong because this tank is full. So let's get it out of here and see just what has happened. So the float is moving freely, and it's a plastic float, so sometimes on older versions of this, this is a little piece of metal that will get pinholes and won't float anymore. So I say, let's go set this down on the table. We can play around with this wiper. And we can see what the resistance is doing. Well, tailgate, not the best table in the world for this, but it'll do. All right, so we'll set one lead onto the ground, and I believe it's this one here is the fuel gauge. Yes. All right. So right now, all the way down, we're dropping. We're at 4 ohms, so close to 0. And then all the way up, we are at 91 ohms. So the float is working the way it's supposed to. It is quite possible that when we installed it, it got bound up somehow. So let's take a look inside the tank, carefully reinstall it, and then we'll see. We can even check this before we put it back up, because we know from looking at it, the tank is full. So when we set this back in here, I should be able to measure the resistance between these 2 pins and see 90, 91. All right, let's get back over there. Okay, now with all of this reassembled, we can take a quick look inside the tank. There's nothing to really obscure this, so we'll just gently put this back in. Our float appears to be doing its job and floating. Now we can check real quick before we even put the snap ring in. Set this back to resistance. We'll go here, and we'll go here. And there we go. We are reading 89 ohms. That's close enough to 90 for me. So let's put the snap ring on, connect the hoses back up, put this back in, and see how it does. Okay, so what I want to do is I want to hook up the electrical to this tank, key it, see if it goes to full. If it does, cool. I also want to start it so I can check for leaks, make sure I got the right hoses connected to the right spots. Then we'll lift it up, bolt it in. Well, good news all around. The fuel gauge works now and the truck started. So let's clean up our little test setup here, get this tank reinstalled. Okay, so gas gauge still works, engine runs. This is good. I'm going to button up a couple things with the filler neck and everything, and we'll see about getting the passenger tank working. That one's going to take a little investigating and probably fuel relays and that kind of stuff. So with that being said, let me get this filler neck in. Well, with the driver's side fuel tank having both a functional fuel gauge and fuel pump, this truck can go back into service. We'll check back later on it to figure out why the passenger tank is not getting 12 volts to the fuel pump, but that could be anything. Bad relay, unplugged connection. Lord only knows what the previous owner did. But until that day, take care. See you next time.